What is the income limit for Medicaid? The income limit is not a fixed number. It depends on the applicant's cost of care. If the applicant's cost of care exceeds his income, then he satisfies the income limit. The applicant must use his income towards his cost of care, and Medicaid pays the excess. For example, if an applicant has $3,000 of monthly income and is in a nursing home which costs $6,000 a month, the applicant satisfies the income limit because his cost of care exceeds his income. What is the asset limit for Medicaid? The hardest part of Medicaid eligibility is satisfying the very low asset limit. For a single applicant, the limit is $2,000 of countable assets. For a married couple, the asset limit can be substantially higher because of spousal impoverishment protections. To the extent the applicant's countable assets exceed this limit, the excess must be spent down. The spend down of assets to qualify for Medicaid is referred to as a Medicaid spend down. Not all assets are countable for Medicaid purposes. Specifically, countable assets do not include unavailable assets and exempt assets. Unavailable assets are assets that cannot be converted to cash within 30 days. Examples of unavailable assets include property listed for sale, a life estate interest in real estate, and certain annuities and promissory notes. Exempt assets are assets specifically protected by statute. They include the value of an applicant's home, one car, prepaid funeral funds, and assets in a qualified special needs trust. Are there any protections for the spouse of a Medicaid applicant? The Medicaid rules provide protections to the spouse of a Medicaid applicant who lives at home. These protections are referred to as spousal impoverishment protections. The protected spouse is referred to as the community spouse. These protections are intended to prevent the community spouse from being impoverished by the applicant's nursing home costs. Spousal impoverishment protections generally allow the community spouse to retain substantial assets and income. For example, Medicaid exempts from the applicant's countable assets the community spouse's IRA and tangible personal property. It also allows the community spouse to own a home of any value. Medicaid further increases the countable asset limit of a married applicant by the amount of the community spouse resource allowance, which may be as much as $123,000 in 2019. The community spouse is further afforded certain income protections. First, the community spouse's income is not considered in determining whether the applicant's spouse is income eligible. Second, if the community spouse's income is below the minimum monthly maintenance allowance of about $3,000, some of the applicant's income can be transferred to the community spouse. What is a Medicaid spend down? A Medicaid spend down describes the expenditure of excess countable assets to bring them down to the level of Medicaid eligibility. For example, if an applicant has $10,000 and a Medicaid asset limit of $2,000, the applicant may need to spend down $8,000 to qualify for Medicaid. Assets can be spent down on long-term care expenses, such as the cost of a nursing home stay, or assets can be expended on exempt assets or converted to unavailable assets. While spending all excess countable assets on long-term care expenses can result in Medicaid eligibility, this approach limits the applicant's options once assets are spent down. Conversely, expending excess countable assets on exempt assets or making these assets unavailable may allow the applicant to qualify for Medicaid while retaining some benefits from the assets. Medicaid asset protection planning often involves converting countable assets to exempt or unavailable assets. For example, countable funds can be spent on the applicant's home to convert the funds into an exempt asset, or they can be used to purchase a Medicaid qualified annuity to make them unavailable.